So here's our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. Enterprise strategy and implementation. 2. Rethinking AI infrastructure needs. 3. The changing LLM economies. 4. Mastering token spend management. 5. Measuring true AI ROI. And finally, 6. Turning disruption into growth. Section 1. Enterprise strategy and implementation. To shift our mindset away from just unconstrained experimentation and move towards a structured, enterprise-wide operational redesign, we have to look at the winning pattern for high-tech firms. And it's not just blindly adopting models. It's about sequencing AI across 3 very distinct layers. First up, you have to create a value portfolio, basically ranking your use cases by the actual economic prize. Second, you establish a shared AI platform, complete with model routing and FinOps. And third, and honestly this is absolutely critical, you have to redesign the workflow itself. You must fundamentally change throughput and decision quality, not just automate one tiny step while leaving the rest of the legacy system completely untouched. Section 2. Rethinking AI infrastructure needs. For the longest time, the industry relied heavily on general-purpose GPUs for absolutely everything. But you know what? We are moving away from those monolithic GPU clusters. To actually slash your total cost of ownership, you have to match specific workloads to the right silicon. It's almost like a giant puzzle. CPUs? They're actually fantastic for orchestration and data pipelines. GPUs definitely remain the king for frontier training. But then we have IPUs for strong, low-latency specialized inference, and RDUs, which are explicitly designed for multi-model agentic workloads and rapid model switching. So it's really a heterogeneous ecosystem now. And this brilliantly illustrates how a central model router acts as the brain of your operations. It's so efficient. It sends your retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, orchestration right over to cost-effective CPUs. It reserves those massive, expensive GPUs for heavy batch inference or fine-tuning, and it pushes the high-throughput agentic workloads to RDUs. Honestly, this is exactly how you run an enterprise AI factory without just burning through cash. Now, if you have any doubts that the era of relying solely on standard GPUs is over, just look at the market validation here. SoftBank just finalized a staggering $6.5 billion vertical integration. They acquired Ampere's server-grade CPUs and integrated them directly with Graphcore's intelligence processing units, or IPs. They are basically building a co-designed closed-loop system entirely independent of standard GPU frameworks to drastically cut the cost of large-scale LLM inference. The market is practically screaming at us that infrastructure diversity is the future. Section 3. The changing LLM economics. When you look at token pricing, there is this really stark asymmetry. Let's take Claude 3.5 Sonnet as an example. Input tokens might cost, say, $3 per million, but output tokens, those cost $15 per million. That is a massive 5x difference. And you might be wondering why. Well, it's because generating output tokens requires repeated sequential passes through the hardware memory subsystem, whereas inputs can just be processed in parallel. Basically, every single word your model generates is physically more expensive than the words you feed into it. Because of this dynamic, a bigger model does not automatically mean better economics. As the entire industry shifts heavily from one-time training events over to recurring inference, deploying smaller, highly targeted models combined with a really strong RAG setup often completely wins out economically. It improves freshness, it grounds the data, and it converts expensive model computation into far cheaper search and retrieval processes. Section 4. Mastering token spend management. Now, to control microcosts at this kind of scale, you have to be incredibly wary of what's called the agentic multiplier. And let me tell you, this is a terrifying phenomenon for literally any budget owner. It happens when a single user prompt kicks off an autonomous coding agent, for example, which then recursively triggers 10 to 50 downstream tool calls. Because of unoptimized system prompts and infinite loops, a task that historically cost maybe 80 cents can suddenly spiral into a $180 bill for the exact same output. It's the kind of thing that can completely obliterate your AI budget overnight while you are fast asleep. So the crucial point is that you need software layer optimizations to cleanly dismantle this multiplier. And there are 3 main ways to do this. First, tool-level API hygiene. You've got to strip out massive, useless metadata from your JSON payloads before you even feed them to the model. Second, prompt compression. Convert those 1,000-word text prompts into highly structured logic, like mermaid diagrams, which can cut input costs by up to 90%. And third, code-based snapshotting. Please, don't let your agent blindly read every single file. Pre-index the codebase so the model only loads the precise fragments it actually needs. Section 5. Measuring true AI ROI. Okay, so with costs finally contained, it is time to actually measure the financial return on these massive investments. Let's ground this in some hard data. Think of it kind of like an iceberg. This is the practical total cost of ownership formula for enterprise AI. TCO is not just about your cloud bill for tokens that you see bobbing above the surface. It's the model spend, plus the physical infrastructure, platform engineering, your data and retrieval stack, governance, and, this is a big one, the often ignored cost of human change management. True ROI has to cover this entire spectrum. It absolutely has to move far beyond the simplistic and frankly flawed metric of just tracking hours saved. To actually prove that ROI, you must measure it at 4 distinct levels simultaneously. You start at the very bottom with model unit economics, things like your cost per 1 million tokens. Then you move up to workflow economics, where you're tracking actual cycle time reductions. Next is business impact, checking how this affects your annual contract value or gross margins. And finally, portfolio health, looking at your overall payback period. If your organization just stops at basic adoption rates, you will entirely miss the operational bottlenecks that are holding back your profitability. Section 6, turning disruption into growth. So, how do we redesign the human workforce to turn all this AI efficiency into actual tangible revenue? Well, the most successful high-tech firms don't just indiscriminately fire people to cut labor costs. Instead, they strategically redeploy their workforce. The Droop Work Redesign Framework breaks this down beautifully. You automate the high-volume rules-based tasks. You augment by having humans validate the AI outputs, ensuring they keep the final decision rights. And you amplify human expertise in complex scenarios through iterative collaboration. Basically, you transition your workforce into AI product owners, reviewers, and workflow engineers. Now, what's really interesting here is this single number, 700. This comes from a fascinating Klarna case study. By deploying an OpenAI-powered assistant, their AI performed the equivalent work of 700 full-time agents. But here's the kicker. It wasn't just doing the work, it was actually doing it better, cutting repeat customer inquiries by 25%. They successfully linked AI directly to equivalent labor capacity and, crucially, customer outcome quality. And check out Appier Group. In early 2026, they reported a massive 29.4% year-over-year revenue jump, and they paired that with an expanded gross margin of nearly 54%. How did they pull that off? By consciously transitioning into an autonomous organization. They scaled agentic AI to automate their lead generation and sales operations. And the core insight here is that they kept their headcount entirely stable while drastically scaling their global revenue. It just proves that agentic AI, when it's implemented right, drives real structural profitability and incredible operating leverage. Which leaves us with the ultimate question. Are you running an AI adoption program or an enterprise reinvention program? Seriously, if you're just bolting AI onto old job boundaries and outdated infrastructure, you're heading straight for that 95% of failing pilots. But if you fundamentally redesign your operating models, meticulously manage your tokenomic economics, and smartly route your workloads across a heterogeneous silicon stack, well, that is exactly how you win the era of enterprise AI. Thanks so much for joining this explainer, and I will see you in the next one.